Welcome to Regent Hall. This is my place of work. Been here all day, been in the office, and I'll be here for a few hours yet. We're here finding a quiet space in between all that's been happening today. We've had cafes still open. We've had visitors coming to have a look at the building because we're going to have a concert soon with this, and so they were coming to see how the acoustics and everything worked. We've had different aspects, different conversations that have all been part of being here. This is my place of challenge, my place of confusion, my place of opportunity. This is my place where I face the reality of what does ministry for me look like in a place like this, for what it is. And in many ways, when we approach Psalm 23, we have to understand if Psalm 23 is saying something to us, it says something in a place like this, or in your office, or in your home, in your school, or in your college, in your fields. In all those places where life is lived, what has Psalm 23 got to say to us? That is what we're going to be looking at over these next few weeks. So, Psalm 23, associated to David, a Psalm of David. It's the context that the Hebrew Bible gives to it, and we as Christians continue that attribution. Like many things, there are scholars who disagree and talk about it being of the school of David rather than of David. But for the sake of where we are, I'm going to take this as a Psalm of David. It's thought that this was a psalm with wisdom and insight. It's thought that it was written at a time when he was king, probably mid-30s, reaching a 40-year-old kind of age mark when life begins to teach lessons and we begin to seek for the wisdom of those lessons into the realities of the life that we are living. He'd made his mistakes. We know the story of Nathan confronting him with his mistakes. And he had grown, he had built an empire, and that empire had complexified his life. It had made it difficult. It had given him challenge after challenge, as well as the opportunities. And yet he comes in this psalm as a king looking for a shepherd. Someone who can help him, strengthen him, guide him, lead him. And I want us to remember as we go through Psalm 23 that we're going to be looking at these next verses, not looking at the shepherd, but looking at what it means to the sheep. So, in many ways, what is it to be a sheep? What does a sheep feel like? What does it think like? How is it affected by the life that it finds itself in? We'll be looking at some of those things because what happens is that what happens in verse 1 is then expanded. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down. So we're looking at what does it mean to lie down? What does it mean to be in green pastures? What does it mean to have still waters? What does it mean to be the sheep? As well as having to look at the shepherd. You know, shepherd is a vast responsibility. The Hebrew word for shepherd that is used in the psalmist is the word ra'ah. And actually, when you break it down, it brings down to a literal meaning of king of the pasture, or the king of grazing, the keeper, the one responsibility to feed, to care, and it becomes shepherd. So the Lord, Adonai, he who is above all, is the king of how I live and get my sustenance in life and living. But we're approaching this as the sheep. Great to know about the shepherd, but what about me as the sheep? The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. So it gives us a reaction to knowing that we have a shepherd. I shall not want. Now it's interesting when we start looking at this verse, because the word that is used, esa, for not want, it's the only time that word is used in the whole of the Old Testament, in the Hebrew Scriptures. And it has a very particular meaning for us. There are connotations of it, there are derivatives of it, but the only time the word esa is used in Psalm 23 and verse 1. And it means that, what does it mean to want? It has a very particular context, because it means not wanting when there's the danger, when there's the possibility of difficulty. It actually means that I'm not deprived. It means I'm not lesser. It means I'm not empty because of the circumstances I find myself. It's not about providence. It's not about abundance. It's about sufficiency for the circumstance. It's a circumstantial word. It's a word of an absolute trust. It's a word that says, I don't have an answer. It's an imperfect tense. So it's a word that has no answer as yet. So it's a word about trust. I shall not want, because the Lord is my shepherd. I trust him when I don't have the answers. I trust him when I can't see the places. I trust him. So I'm going to ask you, just take a moment. Are you as certain as that? That without answers, I can still trust. Where I cannot see, I still trust. That's the importance of what this is saying. It's such a heavy word, such an important, strategic word. I shall not want. I believe that despite all the challenges, all the difficulties, all the things that would possibly take away from me what I have, I trust I shall not want. He will look after me. He will care for me. He will surround me. I will not be deprived because of the circumstances. I will not be lessened by the circumstances. I will not be empty by the circumstances. So this is not about, I shall not want, about abundance. It's about sufficient provision and trust of the sheep that just follows the shepherd. We started off looking at Psalm 23 last week, and we were in a garden, a park just near where we live, surrounded by greenery. Let me just remind you that Israel is not like that, especially in those places where the sheep were. Where you have good ground, you grow things. You grow the wheat, you grow the barley. You grow those things that provide the food and whatever. What happens to the sheep and the goats is that you don't get sent in the good ground. You get sent to the hard ground. And so this psalm is about the opportunities and the challenges of trusting in the hard ground, in the hard places. And we will go on and we will see how the sheep respond in those hard places. Now, I've never been a farmer. I'm not a farmer. I've seen a few programs about farming. I'm aware of what sheep are, but I don't know the intricacies of it all. But for a sheep to trust enough to follow, then it's a deep sense of connection. So we need to move towards that point where we have a deep sense of connection, that if the Lord is my shepherd, I may not have all the answers. But just because he's my shepherd, I will trust where I cannot see. You know, in Matthew chapter 6, there are those verses that why should we worry? You know, we talk about, does the bird worry about the clothes? And, and it says at the end of that, seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all these things will be added to you. In some ways, that's an extension of everything that's in Psalm 23 and verse 1. This idea that if we trust first in the kingdom and everything that kingdom of God brings to us, then we may not know everything that will come out of that, but there will be something beyond our expectations. We will be sufficiently provided for and cared for and covered by the King of the grazing, he who supplies what we need. I shall not want. I've been in circumstances and situations like many where I'm faced with questions, I'm faced with circumstances, and I'm not too sure of the way forward. And I ask God, and at times you feel that in asking God there comes a clarity. And then sometimes in asking God, it's not the clarity, it's the pull of trust. Of him asking me, do you trust me? I remember the story of Peter and Jesus on the side of the lake after the resurrection. And Jesus asked Peter, do you love me more than these? He asked it 3 times, and there's lots of people have all kinds of significance to asking of the 3 times. But in essence, Jesus was asking that despite everything, can you see me? Do you know me? And if you know me, what does that mean for you? To trust that whatever the difficulty, whatever the tragedy, whatever the circumstance, God will be sufficient in my life that I will find myself not deprived of love, not deprived of hope, not deprived of purpose and meaning. At times that may be not deprived of the physical things. It means I'm not lesser, because in following him into the places I have yet to see, places I have never been, he will lead me and guide me and strengthen me, and I will not be empty. You know, sometimes I get asked all kinds of questions. I remember a conversation I had just a few weeks ago with somebody, just here at Regent Hall, and we got onto a conversation about faith and the place of faith in my life, and for him it was a lack of faith. And he said to me, I wish I could believe what you believe. Because right now, he said to me, I feel empty because I have nothing to hold on to. The Lord is my shepherd. And because of that, I shall not want. I don't maybe have everything I need in a physical sense. It's not talking about a big house or a car or anything else. But everything that makes me his, everything that makes me me, I shall not want. With him, only him, may I find that reality. I shall not want. May God bless you.
The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in right paths for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord my whole life long.
Come, let us worship and bow down. Let us kneel before the Lord our God, our Maker. Come, let us worship and bow down. Let us kneel before the Lord our God, our Maker. For He is our God, and we are the people of His pasture, and the sheep of His hand, just the sheep of His hand. Come, let us worship and bow down. Let us kneel before the Lord our God, our Maker. Come, let us worship and bow down. Let us kneel before